Going to be exploring the ideas of the Yale Art and Architecture Building 3 large-scale sculpture. When Paul Rudolph was designing the Yale Art and Architecture Building, some of the main concepts he included were connection and collaboration, movement, verticality, and asymmetry. My small-scale model first, I tried to incorporate the ideas of movement, verticality, asymmetry, and connection. I achieved this through the use of styrofoam as concrete, tinfoil as various metal connections, and the rest of my materials are true to life. My full-scale model, not much has changed from my small-scale model besides using proper connections and varying the heights of the concrete pillars more. In the Art and Architecture Building, Rudolph wants to create an experience for the person moving through the space. With 37 different level changes, it not only creates visible movement between the forms, but physical movement and interaction amongst the space. I first wanted to look at his idea of movement and how I implemented that into my design. First, when looking at the base, I decided to take simple rectilinear forms and stack them on top of each other in a way that travels upward and sort of meanders away from the central point of the sculpture. To me, this gives the impression that you can, in a sense, imagine yourself walking up the sculpture, adding an element of movement and interactiveness, much of the same that Rudolph tried to emulate in his building. Next, looking at the concrete columns, I varied the heights from 4 foot to 7 foot, and this also creates visual movement between the different forms. Next is Rudolph's concept of verticality. Now this one is rather straightforward, but with brutalism comes the idea of large and imposing structures. One of the ways Rudolph accomplished this in his building was by emphasizing the vertical aspect through use of multiple rectilinear vertical protrusions that encapsulate the core of the building. To emulate this idea in my sculpture, I included 3 pillars that are taller than the average person to make them imposing and to seem rather tall in an enclosed space, such as the hallway that I'll be presenting in. The columns are also thicker at the base and skinnier towards the top. This both serves a purpose structurally to keep the concrete sound, and it creates an optical illusion, making the pillars seem taller than they actually are. Next is the integration of asymmetry. Now, Rudolph is well known for his dislike towards asymmetry. He often has made remarks about how the built environment is ever-changing, and it would make no sense to integrate something symmetrical into an asymmetrical environment. He also briefly mentions that nothing is truly asymmetrical, as the sun, or truly symmetrical, as the sun is not static, and it will always cast shadows and ruin symmetry. However, the main reason Rudolph decided to make the Art and Architecture Building asymmetrical is the fact that it is a corner lot, and that it would make no sense to make a building symmetrical to the corner. It was fairly easy to implement this idea of asymmetry into my design, but that it is not to say that it went without thought. Placement of the concrete pillars and glass panes were carefully thought out as to not leave any voids or dense spots in the asymmetrical design. The last idea is of connection and collaboration. Rudolph, in designing the building, wanted to explore new education styles. In this, he created a central hall for the juries to be held. That way, students from all disciplines could sit in and watch what other students had to design. He also explored the idea of connection in relation to the site. With his unique pinwheel plan, he was able to let the different wings of the pinwheel align with not only the roads, but other buildings in the campus, connecting the whole campus together. The way I incorporated this into my design was by adding glass panes that connect multiple elements together and conjoin them without interrupting the view of other elements. Using glass was important in this aspect, as connection and collaboration was not necessarily as important as Rudolph's other ideas in making